Frontier Opening Bell, the very first edition for the month of June 2021. Welcome to the program. I'm Temple Ashaju. We've got Onyeka Ijeoma joining us from Vetiva Capital Management in Lagos. And of course, Bosin Amofaye, Executive Editor here at Frontier Africa Reports. Gentlemen, welcome to the program this morning. The Nigerian exchange was positive yesterday, 0.47%. And you have the BRVM stock exchange in Cote d'Ivoire closing negative by some 26 basis points, opening the week with a slow start there. The Egyptian stock exchange was marginally positive, was up some 0.07%. And of course, the Nairobi stock exchange plummeted by some 1.31%. Perhaps as a result of some profit taking there. And the Johannesburg Stock Exchange was positive, 61 basis points. That was a sharp start to the week. Let's look at the Eastern African headlines before us, where we got quite a number of corporate headlines coming in at this point in time. The Bank of Kigali first quarter net interest income was positive by more than 15%. Bottom line came in at 11.154 billion Rwandan francs. You have consolidated bank first quarter earnings as well coming in, total assets jumping by 13%, and there's a loss after tax of 18%. In Ethiopia, Safaricom and Co will not operate mobile money. Nation Media plans some 20.7 million Kenyan shillings buyback at some 25 shillings per share. And Seychelles Breweries suspends the first half year interim dividend. Something perhaps around prudency or thereabouts. Bosin, let's have you break down these headlines for us coming from the eastern part of the country.
Thanks. I think the folks on Seychelles Islands on the Indian Ocean, just east coast of Kenya, didn't drink as much beer during the pandemic last year. So folks were concerned more about their health and what have you. I think to a large extent, there was a volume went down. So at the end of the day, there won't be so much money. So you got to conserve cash. If you're not paying any dividend, then you can at least plow that, move that. I think Equity Bank did that about a year ago, trying to consolidate its cash position, then use it to do a whole lot of more expansion. They're looking at those acquisitions and expansions into DRC, Congo, Rwanda, and other places will pay off. Then they can pay better or handsome dividend moving forward. So that is expected in the market. I love the story around the Nation Media Group in Kenya, which houses a radio, a television, newspaper. It's a media group, it's a media giant in Kenya and the entire East Africa. And they've got more than 100,000 subscribers. About 70,000 of those subscribers are paid. They transited from being a paper that you publish on the street every day for the vendors to become an online. So they're trying to move that up. In the meantime, the share price has been depressed. So the share buyback program, I think, will help Nation Media Group to reflate the share price of the company, get it up and running. You know, the transition from 2019 to 2020 to 2021 is caused almost every one of us flat-footed. So Nation Media is not an exception. The Bank of Kigali, net interest income about 15%. That's a good story. This is one of the strongest bank in Rwanda, by the way. So it's one of the banks you look to beat if you are in the Rwandan jurisdiction. And that report for the first quarter was as good as it can get. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bosin. Onyeka, any headline of interest that you'd like to have a go with in the eastern part of the continent?
Hi, Temple. Okay. I'm interested in this telco story coming out of Ethiopia. I mean, we've talked a lot about the opening up of the telco space in Ethiopia to the private sector and how positive it is for that sector. However, there's still one part of that space where the government seems to want to have a 100% control over, and that's the mobile money space. Basically, we are seeing that Safaricom and the rest will not be playing in the mobile money space, despite their expertise, despite Safaricom's expertise in that space, demonstrated over many years in across the Eastern African parts of Africa. And at the moment, it's likely just going to be only the state-owned player that would continue to dominate that space, which is quite interesting.
Thanks a great deal. Thank you so much, Onyeka, for giving sharing that insight or perspectives of yours. There's West African and Nigerian markets headlines before us now. A little bit more around oil and gas this time. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries plus non-members meeting meeting today. Of course, that's based on the demand optimism that we've seen around the crude oil commodity at this point in time. The Secretary General, Mohamed Barakindo, saying that the Iranian return to the market in terms of production and, of course, export at this point will be orderly and transparent in that fashion. Total rebrands as Total Energies towards new goals. Conoil PLC's 2020 earnings has just been released. Revenue dipped by 15.9%. Profit after tax, which is the bottom line, also plummeted by some 27%. In Ghana, we talked about this yesterday. Ghana made a surprising rate cut to 13.5% from 14.5%. Onyeka, I'll come to you first. Your colleague, Chima, spoke yesterday around expectations around this. She was actually positive about some kind of a dovish approach at this point in time, and that was exactly what happened yesterday. Now, talk us through what is likely to happen to the Ghanaian markets going forward, and if you'd like to have a go with some of the oil and gas headlines before us here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like, looking at the Ghanaian story, to be fair, we had expected a dovish approach, but I don't think anyone really I think it's more a signaling. It's my signaling thing from the from the Ghanaian central bank, and it would likely have not much of an impact on the economy generally. We know that one of the key things is that we have been seeing rising NPLs across financial institutions, leading to very very poor credit disbursement and an increase in risk aversion from financial institutions.
Right.
And the hope is that the dropping of rates would have an impact, or have some sort of pass-through to interest rates and reduce the burden on debt payers, and also improving the propensity for financial institutions to give credit. However, that's unlikely to happen. Much like Nigeria, we know that these rates are quite sticky. The pass-through is very sticky, and it's unlikely to spur these banks. And it's also just a 1% interest. It's also just a 1% cut. For an economy that is still dealing with inflationary issues, currency pressure is still a huge issue. It'll be interesting to see how things play out. It'll definitely be interesting to see how things play out in the Ghanaian space. Then looking at the Total Energies thing, I think that's actually one of the more interesting stories. It's not directly connected to West Africa only, but this is a global strategy from Total. They are looking to rebrand as a total energy focused company, and not just in the hydrocarbon space, but also with lots of focus across renewable energies. We know that as of last year, hydrocarbons accounted for about 65 to 70% of revenues. About 65-70% of revenues, and they're looking to cut that down to about 35% in the coming years, with more focus on electromobility, with more focus on gas, with more focus on natural gas sales, which are largely going to be spearheaded by the projects that are going on in both Russia and Mozambique. So it's going to be, it's actually, a very interesting story for Total. We expect that the other global oil companies will be making these the same moves and similar announcements, within the next couple of years, as the outlook for the hydrocarbon space has been shifting significantly in a while. And then just pivoting from there into the OPEC plus story, the expectation is that they would hold. I think in April 2021, we saw a shift in the production cut policy as OPEC Plus actually eased the cut agreements. We expect them to hold this time around. We know that they're expecting stronger demand as global economies continue to rebound and economic activity improves. However, there's still there's the Iranian supply that is expected to come into the market, already. And that's it's not going to. They would likely want to watch and see the impact of that before they release more supply into the market. Also,
thank you very much, Onyeka, for all of these analysis coming from you this morning. Bosun, over to you for some of these other headlines here.
Well, I think the OPEC meeting is pretty straightforward. Bakindo spoke yesterday about the stability that we've been able to achieve since April, and they're not likely going to allow the return of Iran to the room to destabilize or upset what they've been able to achieve. Iran will be looking to pump as many barrels of oil into the market as possible, coming from ground zero, as it were. Bakindo and the rest of his team, Saudi Arabia and Russia, those who have been holding the ship steady while Iran was away, are not going to allow that. So it's going to be a little bit tough. Iran is the big elephant in the room. So we all know. So how that is going to play out, I'm sure they'll be head scratching that today once the discussions with the US is over the sanctions. Iran is going to weigh in very strongly into the OPEC, the OPEC alliance, and Russia and KSA will definitely give Iran a pushback. So keep that in mind, because they will want some stability. Iran wants all the money before the oil becomes useless, in the manner of speaking. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. By the way, I'm just joking. Don't worry. Petrol is not going anywhere anytime soon.
I'm telling you, I agree with you.
Whether we like it or not, petrol is not going away anytime soon. So everybody should don't let us get head over heels over this and get over ourselves. Oil is not going anywhere anytime soon. So let's keep that in mind. But again, look at Conoil. Very disappointing numbers from last year. 27% decline in profit after tax. That's not really so good. But yesterday we got good news. We did oil bid transfer marginal oil fields for Nigeria. We're looking to start production very time soon. Awali Sarki, who is the DPR director and managing director, spoke very glowingly at that process which took place in Abuja yesterday. So let's see how that plays out as we move on. So let's just leave it there for now. And just move ahead.
Thank you very much, Bosun. Southern African markets now, where you have Aspen pledging equitable vaccine access in Africa. Standard Bank expects 40% rise in first half year profits. Hardcore Holdings revenue drops by 9.3% to 11.7 billion rand. In Zimbabwe, they are now looking to cease Total mining concessions over non-progress. Regionale lists shares into CEMAC's central depository. Bosun, let me hear your thoughts on these South African markets headlines first before I come back to Onyeka.
Well, the bank story is in everybody's ears, but I'll tell you for free that the biggest headache right now for President Cyril Ramaphosa, His Excellency, is how to get vaccine into South Africa. And Aspen is working with other vaccine manufacturers around the world. Aspen is sitting as a big name in South Africa. They would like to see how this spread across the world. The WHO Director General Secretary General Gebreyesus was speaking yesterday about how developing countries like Africa are not getting the vaccine, as it were. The OECD mentioned that this lack of vaccine will hold back developing economies or countries from making so much economic progress. At the end of this whole virus thing, we're likely going to see the gap between the developed world and the developing countries get a whole lot wider, because right now, nobody has been able to achieve a single vaccine policy for this virus around the world. There's no single policy yet that is focused. So everybody's doing it as per his country's interest. Developing countries are not going to let go. The whole patent issue, the WHO, the news we got this morning was that the WTO, that's the World Trade Organization, was not able to achieve a consensus in getting the patents lifted for other countries to produce. So that's where we are right now. So the vaccine is in a lockdown. Let's put it that way. We had a virus lockdown, then the vaccine is on a lockdown right now. Nationally speaking, every country is looking at it. There was news yesterday on CNN about the third wave or whatever new variant beginning to surface in the UK. That grabbed the headlines somewhat yesterday. I got that yesterday evening. Italy is reopening today some parts of the country, open restaurants, open cafes, what have you. So nobody wants to give out what he has as far as the vaccine is concerned because you're not sure. So you can't give it to your neighbor, then you find out that your own house is on fire, then you go back and say, can I get the fire extinguisher back? It's not going to happen. So everybody's sitting on the keg of whatever he has as far as the vaccine is concerned. So South Africa has that major problem. That's one big issue right now than anything else.
Thanks a great deal, Bosun. Onyeka, what can we expect from Standard Bank? They expect to post some 40% rise in profits in the first half of this year. Where will that money come from?
Well, I mean, it's very interesting that, despite, all the issues that South Africa has had because of the pandemic, economic expectations are through the roof. Business sentiment is really positive, and we've seen that filter into the banks, into bank earnings. We've seen personal loans increase significantly. Mortgages, even auto lending has also increased significantly across the bank, South African business. And so generally, we're going to be seeing a bottom line that will be boosted by strong interest income growth from Standard Bank. This is a very positive indicator for the economy. The propensity for Standard Bank to actually push out more credit into the economy is a really positive indicator for South Africa, for the South African economy.
You must have one or two things to say about the vaccine as well. I trust that.
Yes. Oh, okay. So the vaccine story is actually super interesting, especially because we know that only about 2% of the African population has been vaccinated to date, which is pretty much the lowest of any continent. And it's largely because, we are dependent on imported vaccines for about 99% of our vaccinations. This is super poor. I know we've talked about it a number of times on this show, but it's super poor, largely because we do not have the production infrastructure, but even more so because we do not have the research infrastructure. And so even the current production infrastructure that we do have is not, we are not utilizing it effectively, largely because we have to wait for licenses and information transfers. The positive news, however, is that Aspen Pharmacare has signed an agreement with Johnson & Johnson, for these licenses to fill their vaccines in Africa and distribute within African countries. And they're looking to get some European licenses also to be able to produce and distribute even more. This is super positive. Again, very positive for South Africa, like we talked about with the Standard Bank story. But this pledge that their CEO is, has just given to ensure that the distribution is equitable across Africa. We'll see how it plays out, but it looks positive for the rest of Africa too.
It looks to me like Germany is playing a very fast one on China at this point across Africa. We'll see how that pans out eventually. Not on African headlines before we close the show. We have Faisal Islamic Bank. The Faisal Islamic Bank financing grows to 10.5 billion Egyptian pounds in the first quarter of this year. You have iron and steel spin-off starts EGX trading after listing 978 million shares on that exchange. The Bank of Africa first quarter's net results surged by 180% to 520 dirhams. Wafa Insurance in Casablanca's revenues down by 2.3% to 2.9 billion dirhams in the first quarter of 2021. It's going to be expected. In Tunisia, you have Tunisia Investment Forum delayed till 2022 on the very, very dreaded coronavirus. Bosun, let's start with you. I mean, this particular investment forum should have generated, interest from the neighboring Northern African countries.
Taking it straight out of your mouth, Tempo, it's not good. It's not good news at all.
Yeah.
If you remember, a lot of high-profile events across Africa, from South Africa. If you remember, just about 2 weeks ago, the Africa Oil Week, which is that massive 1 week, the biggest oil folks gathering in South Africa, will be moved to Dubai this year because of the virus in South Africa. So Dubai is going to lose millions of dollars in tourism income for this particular virus. So it's been moved now to Dubai for the 2021 edition. So instead of canceling it altogether, now look at Tunisia losing this investment forum until 2022. Look, that's a whole lot of money lost. Morocco was to hold the World Bank IMF Summit for 2021. That has now been postponed again. The Inter-Africa Trade Forum, the IATF, which is the subsidiary of the Afrexim Bank, ought to have held its annual that trade fair, the first which held in Egypt in 2018. They've not been able to hold it. Now they are thinking of moving it to about August or so. They've been moved to either September, October, or November, just trying to see how things will go. That's supposed to take place in Kigali in Rwanda. So it's a whole lot of money we're losing on the African continent because of the pandemic. Because imagine these 3 or 4, look at the Africa Investment Forum, which the AFDB ought to hold in November. We haven't heard the word about whether this will take place or not. So quite a whole lot of things that we're missing. Airlines are missing, hotels are missing, local jobs on the ground, local hotels, taxis, airports, everybody. We're just losing massively. And it all goes into the bigger economy. Tempo, if you ask me, because when folks stays in hotels and there are a whole lot of bookings, there's a whole lot of water usage, there's a whole lot of electricity or energy being used, it goes into what goes to the government at the end of the day. So the whole virus, we need to begin to think very carefully on the African continent, how we are going to rejig things in a manner in which we will not be held down. Because the OECD prescriptions, which was not far from the IMF, is that we're looking at 5 years to 10 years of catch up with the developed economies because of this virus. If you take that to the year 2030 tempo, some of us are with a whole lot of gray air more than we have right now. Even Onyeka will be having a few of those strands of white air by then. So we need to do something very quickly. We need to look at turnaround. What can we do locally to grow our SMEs, for example, raw materials to intermediate materials into production, so that we can start exporting goods. So if we're not having folks flying in, business travel is not going anywhere anytime soon. Again, these business leaders have all the access to Zoom, meeting, whatever it is. They're not going to risk their lives as executives flying around and getting virus back home or spreading it. That means the low budget local airlines. We don't have that much in Africa. And the folks who are within that bracket doesn't have what it takes to fly around the continent. So they go by road. The rest of us, therefore, need to think very quickly out of the box. Thank you.
Thank you a great deal, Bosun. Onyeka, any market outlook in 30 seconds or thereabouts?
Yeah, so looking at the Nigerian Stock Exchange specifically, we've seen that over the past 2 sessions, that's yesterday and Friday, we saw positive closes. However, despite the positive close yesterday, we saw that at the close of trading, trading started to taper off, activity started to taper off, and trading activity turned slightly bearish. We don't necessarily think there's anything driving this. We think that market sentiment is just largely mixed. Investors are just, going for bargains and taking profits. We expect that to continue for the rest of this week, and it's not discernible catalyst in the market, and we expect mixed trading for the rest of the week.
Very much. Thank you so much, Onyeka Ijoma. Thanks a great deal for Bosun Amofaye, gentlemen. I appreciate your presence and analysis on the program this morning. Onyeka Ijoma is an industrial good analyst with Vetiver Capital Management based in Lagos. Bosun Amofaye is based everywhere in Africa. He's our executive editor here at Frontier Africa Reports. Thank you so much for your perspectives shared on the show this morning. We appreciate it. And this has been the first edition of the show, Frontier Opening Bell, on the program this month of June 2021. I'm Temple Ashaju. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.